The night was dark and heavy with silence. Only the sound of a single motorcycle broke the still air. A tall black man rode steadily down the empty highway, his leather jacket moving with the cold wind. The moon hung low, throwing a pale light across the road. His face was calm, almost too calm for a man traveling alone at night through such a dangerous place. But he was not just any man. He looked ordinary to anyone passing by, just another rider heading home after a long day. Yet inside him lived something the world would never guess. For now, though, he remained quiet. It's just a man riding down a forgotten stretch of road. Then it happened. Bright headlights flared in his rearview mirror. One bike, then two, then five. Soon, the dark highway filled with the roaring engines of a biker gang. Their laughter echoed, sharp and cruel, as they closed in. Their leather jackets carried symbols of hate, the kind that burned against his very skin. "Hey, look what we got here," one shouted. His voice was laced with poison. Another added, "Wrong skin on the wrong road tonight." They circled him like wolves around prey. The black man slowed his bike, eyes narrowing but face still calm. He had felt danger many times in his life, but he never showed fear. The leader of the gang, a heavy man with tattoos covering his arms, pulled ahead and blocked the road. His bike's engine thundered like a beast, forcing the lone rider to stop. Dust rose around them. The black man's bike came to a halt. He placed one boot on the ground, steady, unshaken. "Get off the road, boy," the leader spat, his voice rough with hate. "This here's our territory, and you don't belong." The man didn't answer. He simply looked at them, his dark eyes calm, almost too calm. His silence seemed to bother them more than any words could. One of the younger bikers stepped forward, swinging a chain. "What's the matter? Cat got your tongue?" he mocked. Another one laughed. "Maybe he's scared. Ain't that right, hero?" The black man tilted his head slightly, watching them. But his hands stayed relaxed on the handlebars. His breathing was steady, as if he had all the time in the world. The gang didn't like that. They wanted fear. They wanted panic. But they saw none of it. Finally, the leader barked, "Get him off the bike." Two bikers moved in, their boots crunching the gravel. The black man didn't move. Not an inch. His stillness made them hesitate for just a second, but only a second. They reached for him, and that was when the air changed. In a flash, faster than their eyes could follow, he moved. His hand snapped out, catching the wrist of the first biker. With a simple twist, the man dropped to his knees, howling in pain. The second biker swung the chain, but the black man leaned back smoothly, the chain missing his face by inches. His boot shot forward, striking the biker square in the chest. The man flew backward onto the gravel, coughing and gasping. The rest of the gang froze. Their laughter stopped. Their mocking grins vanished. "What the hell?" one muttered. The leader narrowed his eyes. This wasn't what he expected. The man wasn't supposed to fight back, not like this. But the black man just sat still again, hands back on the handlebars, as if nothing had happened. His calm was almost terrifying. "You boys picked the wrong road," he finally said, his voice low and even. For a moment, silence fell heavy on the night. The bikers looked at each other, uncertain. This man wasn't acting like a victim. He wasn't acting like prey, the leader growled, embarrassed in front of his men. He pulled a knife from his belt, the blade catching the moonlight. "You think you're tough? You don't know who you're dealing with." The black man's eyes flickered, but his face never changed. "Neither do you," he said quietly. The gang surrounded him again, their bikes rumbling like beasts, ready to strike. The highway had become a trap, a cage of headlights and hate. But the man on the motorcycle showed no fear. The question hung in the air, unspoken but alive in every heart. Who exactly was this man? And why was he not afraid? The engines roared louder, and the night grew heavy with tension. The black man still sat calmly on his motorcycle, his steady eyes fixed on the circle of bikers around him. His silence made the gang uneasy, but their pride would not let them step back. The leader gripped his knife tighter, pointing it toward the man. "You think you're something special? This is our road. You'll leave it in pieces." The black man finally slid one leg off the bike and stood tall. The moonlight touched his face, sharp and unshaken. He wasn't a giant, but there was strength in the way he carried himself. Strength the bikers couldn't name. One biker shouted, "Take him down." The first attacker rushed in, swinging the heavy chain again. The chain cut the air with a hiss. But the man moved like water. He stepped aside, caught the chain with one hand and pulled. The biker lost balance and stumbled forward. Before he could recover, a sharp elbow struck his jaw. The biker crashed into the dirt, rolling helplessly. The others cursed. This wasn't supposed to happen. A second biker ran forward, holding a broken bottle. He stabbed at the man's chest. In one smooth move, the black man grabbed his wrist, twisted, and slammed him against the side of a bike. The glass shattered uselessly on the ground. The biker howled as his shoulder cracked under the force. The gang grew louder, circling, their hate mixing with fear. The leader spat on the ground. "Don't just stand there. Kill him." 3 bikers came at once. One swung a bat, another held a knife, and the third came barehanded with a roar. The man didn't flinch. He waited until the bat was inches from his head, then ducked low. His fist shot up like lightning, striking the biker's stomach. Air exploded from the man's lungs as he dropped to his knees. The one with the knife slashed. But the black man caught his wrist mid-swing, twisting until the blade fell. With his free hand, he struck the man across the temple, dropping him cold. The last one grabbed from behind, trying to choke him with strong arms. For a moment, the man stood still, letting the biker think he had him. Then he bent forward, gripping the arms, and flipped the biker over his shoulder. The man crashed into the dust with a thud, groaning. Silence hung in the air again. Only the sound of engines and heavy breathing filled the night. The gang had never seen anything like this. One man, unarmed, moving with such precision, such speed. He didn't fight with rage. He fought with control, each strike exact, each move sharp. "Who the hell is this guy?" One whispered, the leader's face twisted with anger. He couldn't show weakness, not in front of his men. He revved his engine, the roar shaking the air, and drove his bike forward to ram the black man. The man stood perfectly still. At the last moment, he sidestepped, grabbing the handlebars with both hands. Using the momentum, he yanked the bike sideways, throwing the leader off balance. The heavy machine toppled over, sparks flying as metal scraped the road. The leader rolled across the gravel, cursing. He stood quickly, blood dripping from a cut on his forehead. His pride was burning hotter than the wound. "You think you're tough?" he growled, pulling another knife from his boot. "You're dead tonight." The black man simply straightened his jacket. His breathing hadn't changed. His heart was steady, his hands calm. He had been in worse situations. Much worse? The bikers hesitated now. Fear began creeping into their eyes. They had attacked men before, beaten strangers, chased the weak butt. This man was different. He wasn't weak. He wasn't afraid. The leader pointed at him. "Don't just stand there. All of you take him down together." The gang roared, forcing themselves forward. 5 men attacked in unison, chains and fists and knives flying, but the black man moved like a storm. He ducked under a swing, blocked a punch, and countered with a strike so fast the biker never saw it coming. His boot kicked another in the chest, sending him crashing against a headlight. He twisted, catching a wrist, bending it until the blade dropped. Then used the same arm to throw the man into the dirt. Every move was smooth, practiced, precise. It wasn't just fighting. It was training. Years of training. The kind only given to warriors who lived on the edge of life and death. Within minutes, bodies lay groaning across the highway. Engines sputtered, gravel soaked with sweat and dust. The bikers were no longer laughing, no longer mocking. They looked at him with wide, fearful eyes. The black man stood in the center, breathing steady, his eyes sharp as steel. He spoke at last, his voice low but clear. "You should have left me alone." The leader, still standing, wiped blood from his brow. His pride wouldn't let him back down, not even now. He raised his knife high, screaming in rage. The night trembled as the real fight was only beginning. The night smelled of oil, sweat, and fear. Dust still floated in the air, mixing with the glare of headlights. The black man stood silently among the groaning bikers sprawled across the ground. His calm expression didn't change, but in his mind, the past stirred like an old ghost, as the leader cursed and tried to stand again. The black man's eyes grew distant for a moment. His vision wasn't just on the highway anymore. It was far away on the ocean, years ago. The water was freezing. His body shook violently, but he couldn't stop moving. The voice of his instructor boomed over the crashing waves. "Push harder. You are not men, you are warriors. Either you drown, or you rise." He was young then, crawling through the surf with other recruits, sand sticking to every inch of his skin. The ocean tried to swallow him, but he kept going. He had to keep going. The instructors didn't care about excuses. Only results. He remembered carrying heavy logs with his team, his muscles screaming with pain. He remembered nights without sleep, his body trembling from exhaustion. And yet he pushed forward, step after step, because quitting was death. Back on the highway, the leader shouted again, "Don't just lie there. Get up." His voice cracked with desperation. The gang shifted uneasily, but none moved forward. They had seen enough to know the truth. This wasn't some ordinary man. The black man's eyes refocused, locking on them. He adjusted his stance, calm, steady. He didn't rush. He didn't shout. He didn't need to. Another biker, younger than the rest, tried to prove himself. He gripped a pipe and charged, screaming to hide his fear. The black man waited until he was close. Then, with a swift step, he sidestepped and caught the pipe. A twist, a pull, and the biker tumbled to the ground. Gasping for breath as the weapon slipped from his hands, the others stepped back. Their courage was leaking like air from a broken tire. His mind drifted again. Pulled by the echoes of training, the memory of the jungle was sharp. Thick leaves, muddy boots, sweat dripping down his face. His team moved silently through the trees, every step calculated. He remembered the weight of his rifle, the tension in his chest, the knowledge that one mistake could cost lives. "Focus," his team leader had whispered. "Your mind must be stronger than your body. When fear comes, break it. When death comes, face it." Those words never left him. Not in the jungle, not in the desert, not in the frozen ocean, and not here. Back in the present, he looked at the bikers again. Their fear was clear. Some gripped their weapons tighter, others shifted on their feet, unsure whether to run or fight. The leader, still holding his knife, spat blood on the ground. His pride was wounded deeper than his body. "You think you're better than us? You think you can humiliate me in front of my men?" The black man said nothing. He just stood there, his shadow long under the moonlight. His silence cut sharper than any insult. The leader roared in frustration and charged. Knife flashing in the night, the black man moved smoothly, dodging the strike. His hand caught the leader's arm, twisting it until the blade dropped. With the same motion, he shoved the man back against his fallen bike. The impact rattled the leader, but he pushed up again, his eyes burning with rage. The gang gasped. Their leader, the man they feared. The man they followed was being tossed aside like nothing. Another flash of memory struck him. This time, it was fire. Gunfire echoing through the desert night. Explosions shaking the ground. His SEAL team moving in silence, their eyes locked on him for direction. He had learned to fight when outnumbered, to survive when hope seemed lost. He had learned discipline, patience, precision. Back on the highway, he breathed steady. Every move here felt easy compared to those nights of real war, compared to enemies who fought with weapons far deadlier than chains and knives. He stepped forward, picking up the leader's dropped knife. He twirled it once, then tossed it aside into the dirt. His voice, when he finally spoke, was low and calm. "You don't scare me." The words hit harder than any punch. The gang stared, frozen. The leader trembled with fury. "You don't know who I am?" he shouted. But the black man's steady eyes told them all something worse. It didn't matter who the leader was. Because he had faced far greater monsters than these, the gang shifted again, their courage crumbling. Fear spread like fire through their ranks. The black man's memories faded, but their lessons stayed sharp. He remembered one thing his commander had always said: the quiet ones are the most dangerous. And tonight, on this lonely highway, the bikers were learning that truth the hard way. The highway lay in chaos. Broken chains, bent pipes, and groaning bodies littered the ground. The black man stood in the center of it all, his chest rising slowly, his breath calm and steady. His jacket was dusty, but his eyes were sharp, focused. He looked more like a soldier on a mission than a lone rider on a road. The gang leader pushed himself up from the gravel. Blood ran down his cheek from a cut above his eye, but his pride hurt worse than his wounds. His men, the ones who worshipped him, feared him now, looked at him with doubt. That was something he couldn't forgive. He needed to show them he was still in control. He needed to prove he was stronger than the stranger who had just torn through half his crew. With shaking hands, the leader reached behind his fallen bike. When his fingers closed around cold steel, his lips curved into a cruel smile. Slowly, he rose to his feet. Holding the weapon high, a shotgun. The metallic click as he pumped it echoed across the silent highway. His men cheered weakly, relief flashing in their eyes. They thought the fight was about to end. They thought no man could stand against a shotgun at point-blank range. But the black man didn't move. He didn't flinch. He stood with his hands loose at his sides, his eyes locked on the leader. "You think you're some kind of hero?" The leader barked, his voice rough. "Let's see how tough you are when you're staring down death." He raised the shotgun, pointing it directly at the black man's chest. The headlights from the surrounding bikes threw a harsh glow over the scene. Dust swirled between them. The bikers held their breath, waiting for the blast. The black man's face stayed unreadable. His voice, when it came, was quiet but steady. "You're not the first to point a gun at me." The words struck like ice. The leader hesitated for half a heartbeat, his finger tight on the trigger, and in that single heartbeat, the black man moved. His body dropped low, rolling to the side just as the shotgun roared. The blast tore through the air, fire and smoke exploding where he had been standing. Gravel shattered, sparks flying. Before the echo faded, he was already on his feet. Closing the distance, the leader tried to pump the gun again, but the man's hand shot out, grabbing the barrel. With a twist and a jerk, he forced it upward. The second shot fired into the sky, harmless. The bikers shouted in shock, watching as their leader struggled against the stranger's grip. The black man wrenched the weapon free, spun it, and aimed it directly at the leader. For the first time that night, silence wasn't just around them, it was inside them. The gang froze, their bravado draining away. The black man didn't pull the trigger. He didn't need to. Instead, he tossed the shotgun to the ground with a metallic clang. His voice was like steel. "You don't need a weapon to win. You need discipline." The leader's face twisted with rage. Humiliation burned through him. Without thinking, he lunged, his fists flying. The man met him head-on. Their bodies clashed, fists striking, boots kicking, bones rattling. It wasn't just a fight anymore, it was a battle of pride. Of ego against calm strength. The bikers cheered desperately for their leader, trying to drown their own fear. But every time the leader landed a punch, the black man absorbed it, his stance unshaken. And every time the black man struck back, the leader stumbled, weaker, slower. The man's training showed in every move. He didn't waste energy. He didn't lose focus. His strikes were clean, powerful, and deliberate. Finally, with one swift motion, he caught the leader's arm mid-swing, twisted, and sent him crashing onto the asphalt. The leader gasped as the air was knocked from his lungs. Before he could recover, the man knelt over him, his hand pressing the leader's throat lightly, not enough to kill, but enough to remind him of the power he faced. The gang held their breath. None dared move. The black man's eyes narrowed, his voice cold. "You attacked me because of the color of my skin. You thought I'd be weak. You thought I'd be afraid. But you were wrong." He let the words sink in. The leader struggled, but the pressure at his throat kept him still. Then, Just as suddenly, the black man released him and stood. The leader coughed, gasping, clutching his neck. The man's shadow stretched long in the headlights. He looked at the rest of the gang, his expression unreadable. You've fought drunks. You fought the helpless. Tonight, you fought a soldier. And you lost. The silence that followed was heavier than any roar of vengeance. The bikers stared at him, the truth burning in their eyes. The leader staggered to his feet, humiliated but alive. His pride demanded another move. His hand trembled as he reached for another knife hidden in his boot. But the man had already turned toward him, his sharp gaze cutting like a blade. "Don't," he said simply. The word was enough. The leader froze. For the first time, fear had finally taken hold of the man who called himself fearless. The air was thick with tension. The broken road smelled of smoke and blood, dust floating in the harsh beams of headlights. The black man stood calmly in the center, his body steady, his eyes sharp. Around him, the biker gang shifted uneasily, their confidence shattered. The leader wiped blood from his mouth, rage burning in his eyes. Humiliation had cut him deeper than any bruise. He couldn't let his men see him beaten. He couldn't allow this stranger to walk away alive. He raised his hand, signaling the others. "Don't just stand there. Surround him again." The gang obeyed, though their boots dragged. Fear had crept into their hearts, but their loyalty, or maybe their fear of their leader, kept them moving. They formed a loose circle around the black man, engines revving, pipes and knives flashing. The man glanced at them, his face unreadable. He didn't look cornered. He didn't even look concerned. His stance was relaxed, his breathing slow. That calm was worse than anger. It made the bikers feel small, like children pretending to be wolves. The leader snarled, "Psst," pulling a long hunting knife from his belt. The blade caught the light, gleaming sharp and deadly. He pointed it at the man. "You think you embarrassed me? You think you can walk away after this?" His voice was filled with venom. "No one humiliates me and lives to tell the story." The black man tilted his head slightly, his voice quiet but firm. "You've already lost. Walk away before it's too late." The bikers muttered among themselves. Some shifted nervously. Others gripped their weapons tighter. The leader's pride, however, burned too hot for retreat. He took a step forward, knife raised. "You don't scare me?" The black man's eyes locked onto his, steady as stone. "Then you're a fool." The words cut deeper than the knife could. The gang froze, waiting for the explosion. The leader lunged. The knife slashed forward in a blur of steel, but the black man moved faster. He sidestepped, caught the leader's wrist, and twisted sharply. The knife clattered to the ground. In the same motion, he spun the leader around, pressing his arm behind his back. The man cried out, his pride breaking along with his strength. Gasps filled the air. The gang couldn't believe what they were seeing: their leader, their untouchable beast, trapped like prey. The black man leaned close, his voice low enough that only the leader could hear. "You've never fought a real enemy. You've bullied the weak. But tonight, you picked the wrong man." Then he released him with a shove. The leader stumbled forward, humiliated again. His men looked at him, unsure whether to step forward or run. The silence stretched, broken only by the rumble of idling engines. One of the younger bikers broke the stillness. "Boss, maybe we should shut up." The leader roared, spinning toward him. His eyes were wild, desperate. He couldn't back down now. Not in front of his crew. Not with his pride on the line. He reached down, grabbed the knife from the ground, and held it tight. His hands shook. The black man watched him steadily, not even raising his fists. His voice was calm, almost too calm. "You won't win this fight. You know it. They know it." The leader's lip curled. "I don't care. I'll die before I quit." The bikers exchanged nervous looks. Some shifted backward, doubt rising. Their fearless leader didn't look fearless anymore. He looked broken, desperate. Drowning in his own rage, the black man stepped forward, closing the distance slowly, his eyes never leaving the leaders. "I've faced men with bombs strapped to their chests. I've faced soldiers trained to kill. Do you really think you can scare me with a knife? The leader's breath came fast, his knuckles white around the handle. His pride screamed for him to fight. His fear begged him to run. The standoff stretched, heavy and unbearable. The bikers could feel it the moment before the storm. The edge where death waited. Finally, the black man stopped, just a step away. He looked into the leader's eyes, his voice quiet but razor sharp. Put it down. For a long second, the leader didn't move. His pride and fear fought inside him like wild dogs. His hand trembled. Sweat rolled down his temple. Then, with a sudden roar, he raised the knife high. The bikers shouted, but before the blade could fall, the black man struck. His hand snapped up, catching the leader's wrist mid-swing. His other fist shot forward, striking the man's chest with brutal force. The leader fell backward, crashing to the ground. The knife spinning out of reach, silence followed. The black man stood tall, his shadow long under the headlights. His voice was calm but final. This is over. The bikers didn't move. For the first time, they realized the truth. Their leader wasn't the strongest man on this road. He never had been. And the stranger standing before them was something far beyond their understanding. The night was silent, except for the heavy breathing of beaten men. Gravel crunched as the leader rolled onto his side, coughing, blood dripping from his lip. His knife lay far from his reach. His crew watched in stunned silence. Fear replacing the arrogance they had carried just minutes ago. The black man stood in the middle of the road. Shoulders squared, face unreadable. His shadow stretched long in the headlights, a figure to calm, to steady for the chaos around him. The younger bikers whispered among themselves. What the hell is he? No man fights like that. It's not normal. The leader struggled to his knees, glaring up at the stranger. His pride was shattered, but his rage refused to die. You think you're better than me? He spat. You think you can humiliate me and just walk away? The black man's eyes narrowed slightly, his voice calm but edged with steel. You picked the wrong man. You never should have touched me. The leader's laugh was harsh, broken. What are you? Some street fighter? Some washed-up boxer? The man stepped closer, his boots crunching the gravel, his presence heavy like a storm about to break. He stopped just a few feet away, his gaze locked on the leader. Finally, spoke the words that froze every soul on that highway. I'm a U.S. Navy SEAL. The gang fell silent. Engines hummed softly in the background, but no one made a sound. The title hung in the air like a blade. The younger bikers exchanged terrified looks. They had heard stories whispers about SEALs, men trained to fight wars in shadows, men who survived missions that no ordinary soldier could endure. Ghosts in human skin. Warriors forged in pain and discipline. The leader's bravado cracked. His eyes widened, just for a moment, before he forced a laugh. You're lying. The black man didn't move, didn't blink. His calm silence was proof enough. One of the bikers stepped back, shaking his head. No way. That explains everything. The speed, the control. God, we're dead. Another muttered, we attacked a Navy SEAL. His voice trembled, filled with regret. The leader roared to drown their fear. Shut up. He's just a man. He bleeds like anyone else. He picked up a loose chain from the ground, gripping it tightly as if steel links could save his pride. But the black man shook his head slowly. His voice was low, steady, carrying the weight of truth. I've faced warlords in deserts. I've fought through jungles with no food for days. I've been shot at, hunted, left for dead end. I survived. Do you really think you'd scare me? The gang shifted uneasily. Their courage crumbled. Their leader's face twisted, but his men no longer believed in him. They believed the stranger. The leader swung the chain wildly, screaming as he charged. His desperation filled the night. The black man didn't retreat. He stepped forward, meeting the attack head-on. The chain sliced through the air, but he caught it mid-swing, wrapping it around his forearm. The leader tried to pull back, but the man's strength was unshakable. With one yank, pulled the leader off balance and drove his fist into his chest. The leader hit the ground hard, and the wind knocked out of him. He lay there, wheezing, staring up at the man who had crushed him without breaking a sweat. The black man dropped the chain beside him. His voice was quiet, almost pitying. "You should have walked away." The gang didn't move. Their engines idled, headlights glowing like watchful eyes. Fear pulsed in every heart. They had thought they were predators, but tonight they realized they were nothing but prey. The man looked around at them, his gaze steady, his words sharp. "You call yourselves strong because you outnumber the weak. But strength isn't in numbers. Strength is in discipline, in control, in the will to stand when no one else can. That's something you'll never understand." One of the bikers finally dropped his pipe, letting it clatter to the asphalt. Another followed, tossing aside a knife. The rest stayed frozen, too shaken to act. The leader groaned, trying to push himself up again, but his arms trembled. His pride was bleeding out faster than his body. The black man turned, his jacket brushing the dust, his boots echoing on the cracked road. He walked back to his motorcycle, calm as ever. He mounted it, the engine rumbling to life with a deep growl. Before leaving, he looked back one last time. His eyes swept over the gang, broken, fearful, silent. His voice carried in the night, cold and final. "You attacked me because of my skin. You thought I was weak? You'll remember this night every time you see a man who looks like me. And you'll know behind one calm face, there might be a warrior you can't defeat." The biker stood frozen, watching him ride into the darkness. His taillight shrank to a red dot before vanishing into the night. No one spoke. No one moved. The gang that had ruled these roads realized they had been destroyed without guns, without backup, just by one man, and that man was no ordinary rider. He was a Navy SEAL. The highway was quiet now, the roar of engines silenced to a nervous hum. Dust hung in the beams of broken headlights, making the night feel heavy and haunted. The gang of bikers stood scattered, their bodies bruised, their spirits shattered. The leader, once untouchable in their eyes, lay on the ground, coughing, his chest rising and falling in weak gasps. Blood stained his lip, and his trembling hands could barely push him up. The man who had ruled them with fear was now powerless, lying in the dirt like any other defeated thug. The black man stood tall a few feet away, his jacket torn, his knuckles raw, but his stance unbroken. His calm face gave nothing away, but his eyes carried a weight the bikers could not meet. He looked less like a man and more like judgment itself, silent, firm, and final. One of the younger bikers whispered, "We never should have touched him." Another muttered, "He's not human. He's something else." The leader forced himself to his knees, rage flickering faintly in his swollen eyes. His pride screamed louder than the pain in his body. "I'm not finished," he croaked, his voice thin but stubborn. The gang exchanged nervous glances. They didn't want to follow him anymore, not after seeing what stood against them. The black man's voice cut through the night, low and steady. "You're finished. All of you." The words carried more weight than any weapon. They weren't shouted, but they struck harder than fists. The leader staggered to his feet, grabbing for a broken pipe on the ground. His hand shook, but his pride pushed him forward. He raised it weakly, trying to look fierce. The black man didn't even raise his fists. He stepped forward slowly, his boots crunching on the gravel. The sound was louder than the growl of any bike. The leader swung the pipe, a wild, clumsy strike. The man caught it with one hand, twisted it free, and tossed it aside. His other hand shot out, grabbing the leader by the collar and lifting him off the ground. The gang gasped. Their leader dangled helplessly, his feet scraping the asphalt. The black man leaned close, his voice cold, sharp as steel. "You lead men with hate. You think fear makes you strong? But fear only lasts until you meet someone who's not afraid." The leader's eyes widened, his breath ragged. The man's voice lowered further, so quiet that only the leader could hear. "I've fought men who didn't care if they lived or died, and they were stronger than you'll ever be." Then, with a final shove, he threw the leader backward. The man hit the ground hard, sliding across the gravel, choking on dust. He lay there, broken in body and pride, staring up at the night sky as if it alone could answer him. The black man turned to the rest of the gang. Their weapons hung loosely in their hands. Some already dropped them to the ground, fear eating through their bravado. He spoke clearly now, his voice carrying in the night. You thought numbers made you powerful? You thought hate made you unstoppable? But tonight you learned the truth. He paused, his eyes sweeping over each of them. One man with discipline is stronger than a dozen with rage. The bikers lowered their eyes. None dared to meet his gaze. The leader groaned on the ground, trying to push himself up again. His voice cracked with desperation. Don't just stand there. Finish him. But no one moved. His words had lost their weight. His men were no longer his. They were beaten without being touched, broken by fear, by shame, by the truth. The black man walked to his motorcycle, steady and calm. He swung his leg over, the engine growling to life under him. The red glow of his taillight painted the broken faces of the gang. Before he left, he spoke one last time, his words final and heavy. Remember this night? Every time you try to bully the weak, every time you think hate makes you strong, you'll remember. Because you'll know there are men out there like me. Men you can't break. Men you'll never defeat. He revved the engine once, the sound echoing down the empty road. Then he turned the bike, riding into the darkness. The taillight shrank into the night until it was gone, swallowed by shadows. The bikers stood frozen, staring at the empty road. The silence around them felt heavier than chains. Their leader sat broken in the dirt, his men finally seeing him for what he was, not a wolf, but a coward who had led them into the jaws of a lion. No one spoke. No one dared. On that highway, under the watch of the moon, a legend had passed through. Not just a man, a Navy SEAL.